Thank you, everyone. Welcome back after lunch, and I'm incredibly impressed with the dynamism and the interaction of the conference so far. You're all doing your homework just as the Vice-Chancellor requested. So before we begin this next session, I'll just echo again the acknowledgement of country that we had, and again acknowledge what a fantastic welcome to country we had this morning. This is a really important session of the conference. It's a great pleasure in a moment to introduce the Minister for Home Affairs and Cyber Security, the Hon Clare O'Neil MP, and also the Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs, Stephanie Foster PSM. We're going to have two speeches giving a clear sense of not only the direction, the purpose, the challenges and opportunities for Home Affairs at this time, but also a sense of the implementation, the culture and the way in which the department is navigating those challenges and opportunities. What I'll do in a moment is call up the Minister for her remarks, followed by the Secretary, and then I'm pleased to say that both the Minister and the Secretary will join me for an in-conversation. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask you to welcome the Minister for Home Affairs, the Hon Clare O'Neil MP. Minister.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people who have been the traditional owners of the land around Canberra for more than 50,000 years. And I'm so pleased to have this opportunity this afternoon to talk to Australia's top thought leaders in national security. We have amassed in this room hundreds of years of experience in some of the subjects that are most important to my portfolio. Some of you in this audience have helped me a great deal in the last 2 years, and I want to thank you for that and for your attendance here today. And Rory, I want to thank you for giving us this great opportunity. Now that we're here at this conference, it feels like we should have been doing this every year, and it's a great initiative of the college. So today I want to do three things. I want to talk about the national security environment that Australia confronts and a little bit about what the future looks like for us. I want to explain how our government is focused and approaching the task of preparing our country for the decades ahead. And then I want to spend a bit of time on Home Affairs itself and the future of this critical area of the Australian government. Australia has faced very difficult global security environments before, but I don't think we have faced one as complex as this. Our world is more deeply connected than we could ever have possibly imagined. Our financial systems, our data exchanges, our trade routes, migration pathways, telecommunications, supply chains, and social lives are today embedded in vast global networks. This brings with it lots of benefits: convenience, instant communication, and rapid cooperation. But it also enables rapid contagion of viruses, of malware, of dangerous misinformation. Our country faces the most challenging geostrategic environment since the end of the Second World War. And this is something that is intensely unfamiliar for most of the people who live in our country today. Most of us have been lucky enough to grow up in a world and in a region where we look out to increasing prosperity and democratisation, but that is no longer. Authoritarian powers are doing everything they can to undermine democratic systems. They wield terrible tools of coercion, of disinformation, and political interference that creates threats for Australia and for Australians even when they are at home. Great power competition is back. And while global conflicts and events can feel quite remote to us here in Australia, what's very different about the 50 years that lie ahead for us is that this whole issue of competition will play out right within our region. And as always, when we go through periods of global competition, technology is at the centre of the action. A lot of the national security issues that we face today rely on technologies that didn't even exist 20 years ago. And emerging technologies like AI and quantum computing are creating entirely new generations of threats. Think about the impact of AI and machine learning just in the cybersecurity space alone. It's very significant. Now, I've described there some of the human and geopolitical dimensions of the challenge, but don't forget that this future is going to unfold in the context of a climate that is warming faster than even fairly radical climate scientists predicted it would a generation ago. The changes to the weather are significant. We can see it, we can feel it. The implications of what this will mean for the coming decades, whatever we do to mitigate global warming from here, are vast. Think about changing agricultural patterns, the food supply that this will affect, in particular to developing countries. Think about the implications for land use around these low-lying countries in the southeast. Think about the implications of what we now know will be more persistent, more catastrophic, and more frequent natural disasters. Think about rising sea levels in our region. In Southeast Asia, it is probable that tens of millions of people will be permanently displaced from their homes merely because of climate change in the decades ahead. So when we put this all together, what do we see? A national security environment that contains a lot of challenge and that's evolving really quickly. Now, I also feel, perhaps paradoxically, hugely optimistic about our country's future in the face of these difficulties. If I could pick a single country in the world that is likely to thrive in the coming decades, I would pick Australia. And part of the reason that I say that is because of what I see when I look back. Australia is one of the most resilient, prosperous, democratic countries in the world. And part of the reason that we are that today is because of the way our nation has responded to crisis and challenge in the past. When the going gets tough, Australians are at their best. We are innovative, we are strong, we are practical, and we are united, and we have a hell of a lot that is worth protecting. So let me speak a little bit now about how our government thinks about this incredibly important task of protecting our country in the face of some of what is to come. I know and I hope that you would all observe this, but one undeniable feature of our government is the seriousness with which we approach this task. We are relentlessly focused on the job of trying to prepare our country for the future that I've described, and that is the clear direction and the priority of our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. You see it in defence, where Richard Marles is building world-leading partnerships and new capabilities to defend Australia, whether that's through AUKUS, through the advanced technological capabilities in the Australian Signals Directorate, or the highly skilled ADF personnel who are posted overseas. You see that in foreign affairs, where Penny Wong is a global powerhouse, lifting Australia's reputation around the world and dexterously leading and managing issues in a way that is helping our country every day realise the kind of peaceful, prosperous future that we seek. You see that in Mark Dreyfus, our Attorney General and one of the closest partners I have in the federal government, working as we do together on creative solutions to deal with matters like foreign interference, like counterterrorism and cybersecurity. National security is not a plaything for our government. It is a sacred task, our most important task, and we treat it as such. I want to talk to you a little bit about the role of Home Affairs specifically in managing some of the issues that I've talked about. Home Affairs has a really clear dual mission: to help build our nation and to help protect it. The national security conversation that we have can sometimes take on a very defensive posture, and there are really good reasons for that. But one of the wonderful things about the work that we do in Home Affairs is that we think a lot about building national strength and resilience. Nation building is about prosperity, about creating a country where every Australian can fulfil their potential. It's about building unity and social cohesion. It's about building those sovereign capabilities that we're going to need to manage what lies ahead. I'm thinking about our major policy programs in things like cybersecurity, critical infrastructure, and intelligence. It is, of course, also inherently about the management of our migration system. Migration is absolutely essential to Australia's national story. We are the most successful multicultural country in the world, and I am very lucky to live and work in an electorate which teems with life because of the generations of migrants who have chosen to make their home there. We arrived in office to find a migration system that wasn't working for our country. That is the conclusion of a major review that was done by Dr. Martin Parkinson into the migration system when we first took office. What Dr. Parkinson told us was that this is a system that was so broken it was going to require a 10-year rebuild, and that is what we are undertaking. Out of his work, we developed a 10-year migration strategy for our country. Our goal is a smaller, better planned, more strategic migration program. I'd really urge those of you that are interested in this subject to have a look at the migration strategy document, which you can find online. Believe it or not, this is the first time that Australia has had a written strategy for its migration system. I have a really simple perspective on migration reform. We face a lot of challenges when we look into the future. We can't afford to have a system this important to our national growth, to innovation, to prosperity for our country, not firing on all cylinders. We just can't afford it. And that's what our migration strategy is about, getting this system to work again for the interests of our nation. So I've spoken there about some of the areas in which we are doing really deep work and thinking on building the nation. And I want to speak about some of the important areas where we think more about this role of protecting the nation. Home Affairs plays a central role in identifying, managing and disrupting the full field of national security threats. Natural disasters, climate change, pandemics, cyber incidents, foreign interference, espionage, terrorism, and extremist ideologies of division and hate. So let me speak about some of the big programs of work that are the subject of a lot of the energy and effort that goes into the work of the department at the moment. The department, of course, plays a leading role in Commonwealth border security, and this is a job that is led very ably by the incredible people that work at Australian Border Force. This includes the long-standing policies of Operation Sovereign Borders, deterrence and disruption, detection and interception, and regional processing and resettlement. It's principally the department's job, working with partners across government, to disrupt the people smugglers who manipulate vulnerable people and abuse our migration system. It's a really key priority for our government and for me personally. The broader task of managing our borders is very, very significant. Australia has 34,000 kilometres of coastline, and the incredible people at Australian Border Force examine 26 million packages each year and manage the movement of 32 million people as they cross our borders. Home Affairs leads the Commonwealth in cybersecurity and critical infrastructure policy. Cyber is central to just about every national security challenge that we face. And through our work in cybersecurity, we are helping safeguard the central nervous system of the 21st century: data, communications, the Internet of Things. We've seen some really significant cyber attacks in the time that I have been Cybersecurity Minister: the Optus attack, the Medibank attack, the DP World attack, to name just a few. But to be honest, what we are seeing in these really large-scale attacks to date is the tip of the iceberg. Something our government is deeply concerned about is thinking about preparing for large-scale attacks on critical infrastructure. We're thinking here about big attacks on our energy grid, on our water sources, on our hospital networks. Prime Minister Albanese decided in 2022 to create a Cabinet Minister for Cybersecurity for the first time. And since our government has been elected, I hope you see that we have been able to bring cybersecurity into a central focus, not just within the Home Affairs Department, but across the Australian government where it belongs. We've made some really important strides on this in the last 2 years. This has included the world-leading cybersecurity strategy that was adopted by our government last year, which puts Australia on track to become a world-leading cybersecurity country by 2030. We've created a new position for the National Cyber Coordinator and appointed Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness to that role. I understand if you don't work in cybersecurity, that might not seem like a big deal, but it actually has been very transformative for the work that we do in cybersecurity across the Commonwealth. When we arrived in office, we had cybersecurity policy and operational responsibilities spread across government without a clear person or role for someone to coordinate those activities and make sure that we are providing national protection in all of the work that we're doing. And the work that Lieutenant General McGuinness is working on is helping us both lift capabilities across the Commonwealth, lift cyber capabilities across the economy, and play a really central new role in helping us manage large-scale cyber incidents as they affect Australians. Lieutenant General McGuinness is also running national cyber exercises, so going sector by sector and sometimes across sector to work out what we would do in the case of failure of pieces of major critical infrastructure. It's really, really important work. Sticking with cyber just for a moment, we're working closely with industry leaders at the moment to co-design landmark cybersecurity legislation. So this is going to do some very important work for us in setting new regulatory standards for cybersecurity, in particular for Internet of Things devices. We are also going to make ransomware reporting mandatory through law and establish a cyber incident review board. So this is a piece of policy that will make sure that after a major cyber incident occurs, we get the facts as Australians, we get to understand what has happened, and we get to learn from that, which is really what we need to do, understand what occurs and make sure we're improving our performance over time. We work greatly with ASIO on tackling foreign interference and espionage. Now, you're all national security experts in this audience, and so you'll know that in 2022, Director General Burgess made a very big statement for our country, which was to declare for the first time that foreign interference and espionage had supplanted terrorism as Australia's principal national security threat. Now, as a government and ASIO as a security organisation consistently say that we will always prioritise threats to life. But what it has meant is that foreign interference and espionage are requiring more effort and more energy, both of policymakers and of officials. Home Affairs works very closely with ASIO to make sure that we're closely collaborating with those communities of interest that we are concerned about when we're thinking about foreign interference. It's not always the people that you would think. People who work in what would seem to be fairly innocuous professions are actually quite subjected to foreign interference. But we work a lot with politicians, with academics, with industry, and of course with diaspora communities. Counterterrorism remains a central focus for our government. Director General Burgess lowered the threat level to possible. It was probable previously. He lowered the threat level to possible, but this remains just a core focus for me and for the Director General. We are very vigilant in this, and our counterterrorism teams work tirelessly to disrupt extremist ideologies and terror threats. They're at it every day of the week, whether it's in the newspaper or not, making sure that they work to protect our community. Finally, one of the areas I want to talk about that the department's thinking about and working on is on strengthening democracy and social cohesion. These two are not subjects that you always hear in the context of a national security conversation, but I want to talk to you about why these things are so important. Democracy, because all of the challenges that I've talked about off the top of the speech here that we are going to confront in the decades ahead, we are not going to be able to manage unless we maintain the strong democracy we have here in Australia. We have an incredible story to tell about the success of our democracy here. We're the 6th oldest democracy in the world. We have one of the best systems of managing our electoral system, and we can all be really proud about what we've achieved here. What I want us to be able to do is tell that story better as a country. I would like more citizens to be able to explain and understand why democracy matters and what it is that we have to be proud of here. Social cohesion is another very central and important topic. It underpins our well-being, our trust in others, and our confidence in public institutions. And I just put this really simply to you. The more connected Australians feel to their own citizenship, to their own country, and to each other, the safer we will be in confronting what lies ahead. Now, part of helping the Australian government deliver on our national security mission is having a Home Affairs department that is fit for purpose. And I want to conclude my remarks by addressing this one with you really directly. Working with the men and women of Home Affairs is the honour of my life. They are amazing people, patriots to their core, deeply committed to serving their communities. They are practical, action-oriented, experienced and intelligent. We develop policies as a department, we make laws, but we also deliver, and we are really proud of that. I'm thinking about the Border Force team who analyse packages coming into our country using their experience and their smarts and intuition, as well as some of the latest technologies. Every day, this community of people go to work and stop drugs and guns and other contraband coming into our country. They're protecting our community every single day. I'm thinking about the fine, clever people who work with us on upgrading cybersecurity capabilities across the Commonwealth and in incident response, helping to protect Australians when things go wrong. I'm thinking about the visa processing staff who exercise incredibly important responsibilities for our country. They help facilitate fast package for those skilled workers, for those family members that we really want in here in our country. But they also do this very important work of preventing people who we don't want here from coming in to begin with. I'm thinking about the counter-terrorism experts of ASIO and other agencies who have helped save Australia from at least 21 violent terrorist incidents that would otherwise probably have occurred over the last decade. You will not find more knowledgeable and dedicated people anywhere in our country. And I want to thank all of those staff and say to them, please understand we recognise the incredible importance and dedication that you show to your work. Now, these staff know better than anyone that when we came to government, we inherited a Home Affairs department with some real difficulties. And the problems that you read about sometimes in the newspaper have been verified by a number of independent reviews that we've issued over the past 18 months. So along with this really ambitious reform agenda that I've talked to you about in terms of the work of Home Affairs, there is much diligent work happening behind the scenes trying to rebuild a Home Affairs department that's genuinely fit for the future. Our response has been very extensive. It has involved significant policy reform, it's involved structural work within the department, and it's included real new investments in capability. In the 2 years we've been in office, more than $2.6 billion additional dollars has been invested in Home Affairs programs and capabilities. And the department is stronger than ever, but there is a lot more work to do. That's why when Stephanie Foster was appointed as the Secretary of Home Affairs 5 months ago, my first request to her was to help me to address these issues within the organisation. And we are working together to rebuild the department. It's a very significant task. My role as Minister is resetting the mission of Home Affairs around the security challenges of the future. Secretary Foster is focused on transforming the organisation itself, rebuilding the culture within the department with integrity at its core, addressing organisational issues which have been well publicised, and making Home Affairs an employer of choice. We want young people such as the brilliant students here at the National Security College to dream and aspire to work at the Home Affairs Department. Every step of this journey is in service of that dual mission I talked about, to build our nation and to secure our future. It is absolutely critical work, one in which today and every day the national security community and the National Security College here at ANU are integral and valued partners. Thank you, Rory. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think you've very compellingly set the context, the national security context for the mission and the purpose of Home Affairs, but also you've raised that question, that challenge, that priority ahead of ensuring that Home Affairs is fit for purpose. And I think to follow that really important presentation, it's a real privilege to introduce now the Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs. It's great to have the Secretary appearing with the Minister today to speak to the transformation, the culture, the implementation. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Foster.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Minister. Let me first associate myself with Rory's and the Minister's acknowledgement of country and add my respects to theirs. And then let me turn to all of you. Hello, thank you for being here with us today. As I look around, I see not only many of my current wonderful Home Affairs staff, but hundreds of potential fantastic recruits, all of whom can help build and nurture the Department of Home Affairs of the future that the Minister has so evocatively described. The department itself is a national security asset, a national security capability. And we in this community have a collective responsibility for its health and its effectiveness. Minister O'Neill has outlined an incredibly exciting set of opportunities, ones that are fundamental to Australia's success as a nation, not just from the security lens that is the focus of this college, but economically and socially as well. It's one of the things that makes this portfolio so incredible, the way we contribute to every aspect of Australia's future. The Minister has also handed me the challenge of delivering on this vision, as always in partnership together. There are indeed significant challenges, and I'll talk about some of those soon. But the first thing I always celebrate is what a great foundation I'm building on. An organisation with a proud history going back to federation in various guises, and a workforce that is passionate, committed, has deep expertise, and is incredibly hardworking. No matter what the crisis, no matter what the time of year, there are always folks leaning in to lead us through it. We're also getting a lot of help from outside, and not just, thank you, media and commentariat. We have an APSC-led capability review in its final stages, with two terrific former public servants, Ian Watt and Liza Carroll, helping define our future capability needs. We have Nigel Ray, another great former public servant, helping us align our resources with the priorities government has of us. And we have David Tune, yet another eminent former public servant, helping us design a procurement framework that's fit for purpose for the large and complex contracts we manage. And finally, we're leading a cultural refresh program internally alongside the capability and priorities work that's going to make the whole thing hum. Interestingly, the findings of all of these activities are pointing in the same direction, are giving us the same messages, and we're bringing them together into an ambitious transformation agenda. Before I launch into the detail, it's important to say that we're already well underway. The two most rewarding themes for me in the capability review were recognition of the passion and commitment of our staff, and acknowledgement that we're running in parallel with the review, putting in place the building blocks for our future success right now. So, to our directions. The first clear message is about clarity of vision and direction, including strong strategic policy and horizon scanning capacity. Today is partly about that, of course, articulating who we are and what we will achieve together as an organisation. The Department and the ABF each bringing their unique roles and capabilities to work seamlessly together. It's also about how we will work across the department, across government, and across the economy to keep Australia prosperous, secure, and united. So secondly, it's about uplifting our capability across the board in technology security, in combating terrorism and foreign interference, in the integrity and utility of our migration system, and in supporting our democratic institutions, and so much more. Some are already areas of great strength, some are new and emerging, and some we really need to lift our game in. Our job in this respect will never be done. We will always be adapting to new security challenges, and we must have a benchmark of excellence across all that we do. Thirdly, it's about getting the basics right. A governance system that effectively manages risk and budget and performance and safety and people and culture. It's clear and enforced standards of integrity. It's excellence in our administrative processes, like contracting, like managing conflicts of interest, getting rid of the noise associated with those things that destroys public confidence and distracts us from our core business. And finally, it's about our culture more broadly, a culture of collaboration and curiosity and confidence, a culture of connection with community, a culture of integrity, and a culture of excellence in the outcomes we deliver and the way we lead and support our people. Let me unpack those a little. Collaboration isn't just a nice way to do business for us. It's core to our success. Look at just one of our critical missions, counter-terrorism. The nature of terrorism and pathways to radicalisation are becoming more complex And our responses need to go beyond the traditional notions of religious or ideologically motivated extremism. Online content is tapping into perceptions of injustice and alienation. Technology is finding susceptible candidates. Gaming platforms test a kid's appetite and motivation and can successfully recruit from within the confines of a family home. An effective response has to bring together the social welfare, the education, the health and the justice systems, along with the private tech sector, hosting platforms and, of course, our traditional police and security partners. In short, our strength lies not just in our expertise, but in our capacity to integrate the whole. To succeed in the environment that the ministers described, we also need curiosity, the capacity to imagine what might be, what will actually give us the best migration system in the world, make us the country of choice for top talent, provide protections and safeguards for the vulnerable who come to our country. And how will we become a world-leading cyber security nation by 2030? For us, these are not bumper stickers. These are concrete goals. These are game-changing strategies where we need to keep driving and striving and pushing for step change. We need to be constantly asking, what else? What next? And what more does our community need and expect? We also need the confidence to speak out, to surface ideas and raise concerns. And that's a real challenge for us, for me personally, for my leadership team more broadly, to rebuild trust, to create safe spaces for staff to contribute and to respond and adapt to their input. And that's a great segue to that very central issue of integrity. The integrity debate across the APS has particular resonance for us, partly because of our functions. The average APS officer does not deal with drugs and guns and illegal vapes, or sex trafficking through the visa system, or the many other functions that we do that bring us into contact with organised crime and bribery. We have functions that are much more susceptible to corruption than your average public servant. We're putting a huge effort into rethinking our approach to integrity, to replacing processes and rules with principles and accountability. Our approach to conflicts of interest is a great example. It's rich in process and rules, but lacking in a frank conversation about what's okay and what's not, and ways to support our staff to actively manage the risks associated with real or perceived conflicts once they're surfaced. Let me finish on the thing that will actually help us deliver all of this. I've spoken already about excellence in outcomes, and I reiterate how important it is to strive for the absolute best outcome we can achieve in all our endeavours. From border security to trade facilitation, from our permanent migration program to supporting working holiday makers and students, from social cohesion to counter-terrorism and countering foreign interference. All of these things build and protect our great nation. But the difference between success and failure, excellence and mediocrity, lies not just in great strategy or sound budgeting and processes, but in the quality of our people and how they are led and supported. I've talked on the way through about two of the three things that are my personal beacons in this role: game-changing strategies and collaboration and integration. The third is exemplary leadership. I need every leader in Home Affairs to demonstrate their own version of exemplary leadership so that we attract and retain the best and the brightest, all of you here today, so that we help every one of our 15,000 plus staff achieve their full potential, so that we deliver on the promise of this great organisation and its critical mission. Because this issue of leadership is so fundamental to our success, let me dwell for just a moment on what it means in practice. Firstly, and at its most fundamental, it means being a decent human being, treating people with respect and courtesy and kindness, valuing their diverse experience and backgrounds, understanding their needs and expectations, creating an environment in which they can succeed. It means setting an ambitious agenda and communicating it over and over, and at an individual level, setting clear goals and high standards and making sure that they're met. It means operating openly and transparently and with integrity. It means building strong alliances and partnerships, listening carefully and finding common ground so that the whole system is pulling together. And finally, it means giving our best, being our best, growing and learning throughout our leadership journeys. It's the combination of all of the things I've talked about today that will deliver a Department of Home Affairs that is fit for purpose for Australia into the future, to play our part in keeping Australia prosperous, secure and united. Thank you.
Look, thank you both. And I think that although I hadn't quite anticipated making this conference a sort of a recruitment endeavour by the Department of Home Affairs, I've signally failed in that. But that is consistent with the mission of capability uplift of the National Security College. It's just that Home Affairs will be in competition with the 18 other agencies of the Australian government that collectively sponsor our teaching. But thank you both. It's fantastic that we've made some time for some questions because there's so much, I think, richness in both of those sets of remarks, Minister and Secretary. I'd like to draw you out each on a couple of key points, and then I want to conclude sort of warning you now with a question on workforce, because that is actually, it's central to this conference. It is about a people-centric approach to Australian security. So, Minister, if I can begin with you, focusing on some of the issues and challenges that you've raised in that context about the Australian strategic environment. You touched on technology a number of times. You touched obviously on cyber, but we can come back to that. But you mentioned AI and other disruptive technologies that really could have a radical effect on our security environment. Interested to understand more about your thinking, government's thinking, about how we're going to really manage those risks and really turn those into opportunities rather than security challenges.
Thanks, Rory. So Steph and I have both talked a bit about orienting the department to the future, me more on the mission and drive end of things, and Steph on the way the department operates and how we support the work of the Australian government. And the topic that you've touched on there is a really good example of something where I think we need to really build strong capability within the Department of Home Affairs. If I can be direct about it, we've got a number of new technologies coming at us that are going to have very profound effects on the national security environment. They're going to do it really quickly, and we need to build better capability across government to understand what those impacts are going to be and what policies we need in place to manage them. If I can issue a little bit of a challenge to the people in this room, because I know this would be a subject that you're doing a lot of thinking about, what I observe of the policy conversation about some of these emerging technologies is the conversation being led and driven around regulation and trying to force a specific type of innovation to occur through making laws. Now, I'm a politician and a lawmaker, but I also have a very healthy scepticism about the capacity of government to do things such as this. There is billions and billions of dollars being poured into the development of these technologies all over the world. And, technological transformation is fast. Government is quite, for quite good reason, often a bit slow to catch up to new developments. What I think is really important for us as national security experts to be thinking about is how we are going to make sure that these technologies are not sitting with the hands of people who seek to do us harm. How are we going to make sure that governments, that people who are going to work with us on national security problems have the expertise and have access to those same technologies as the people who are trying to hurt us? So if I just think about very briefly on cyber, there's no question that emerging technologies will transform the cyber environment for us. We see it in, I think, small ways today with the ransomware as a service kind of shift in what we see in cyber attacks, which is really, in the very worst possible way, democratising the ability of people to attack using cyber as their weapon. It's taken it out of the hands of people who have those technological capabilities and made it, more applicable to common criminals. What I am much more worried about, of course, is AI and machine learning in cyber. Now, that is going to transform the threat, but as long as governments and people who are trying to protect the community have access to those same technologies, it will also revolutionise our capacity to respond. So I think as national security people, we need to be thinking about not just stopping technology being invented or trying to shape how it, the innovation curve, but also just thinking about how we are going to make sure that governments and professionals have access to the skills and those technologies that we're going to need.
Minister, I'll keep you on the threat environment or the risk environment for a moment, if I may. You also highlighted in your speech, as you did in a speech at the National Security College last year, foreign interference as really a foremost threat, or indeed as a risk that the Director General of Security, the head of ASIO, has actually identified as really number one. How do you assess, I guess, the challenge and how are we actually doing in response to foreign interference, whether it's the role of your department or the national security community more broadly?
Well, the threat is enormous, and Director General Burgess has talked about this in his threat assessments, which are a very important feature of our national security discussion and landscape. What we have seen, foreign interference, of course, is a practice that's as old as time. We've always had foreign governments trying to influence each other in somewhat nefarious ways, but there are some really big differences to what we're starting to see. One of those relates to the scope of people and organisations that are being subjected to foreign interference. I talked about, what people need to understand is that this is not just about protecting, top secret information across government. Foreign governments are trying to build a picture about how we make decisions, about how companies work, about just the way that our society and our economy operates. And the implication there is that they're not just targeting people who've got top secret security clearances anymore. Director General Burgess talked about one of the phenomenons that ASIO has been working on really closely, which is this issue of people using LinkedIn to be approached. I mean, that's a good example of both the broader spectrum of targets for foreign interference, but also the way in which technology is being used to make sure that, to approach people effectively, to try to get them to reveal secrets and other things. So broader scope of people, much higher volume. And one of the most important things that we have to protect ourselves here is public knowledge. That's why, as Minister, I've tried to talk a lot about foreign interference wherever I get the opportunity to do so, and why I'm so supportive of the Director General Security's work in trying to blow open the doors a bit on this conversation. Those of you that have been involved in national security discussions for a long time will see that Director General Burgess has a much broader public role than a lot of previous DGs of security. That is intentional, and it is very important for our national security as a country and for that conversation that we're trying to have with people about what this means.
Look, thank you. I know time is tight, but I might just go to the Secretary, if I may, with a couple of questions. And I want to go firstly to one of the questions that really you raised and I guess began to address in your remarks about culture, about integrity and culture in the department. So, Secretary, the question really is about the department's essential collaboration with the private sector. I mean, there has to be collaboration with the private sector for this whole-of-nation security response. You've talked about looking again at integrity, looking at procurement processes, looking at culture internally. I guess what I'd be keen to understand, or for you to help us illuminate, is how far has the department got? Where are you at in that journey towards ensuring integrity in procurement processes in the relationship with the private sector, and how do you guarantee a sense of trust in that regard?
Thanks, Rory. So I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that most of our folks operate in a way that's perfectly appropriate, with, a strong moral compass and an understanding of what's right, what's wrong, and how to do it. What I'm not confident about is that we have robust enough systems in place to support people to do that every time. And frankly, nobody asks me about the 999 contracts that we've executed brilliantly, but everyone's focused on the one where there were probity issues or conflict issues. And so I need to make sure that we are supporting staff to understand, as I said earlier, to have a conversation about what's okay and what's not okay, and make sure that we all have a common understanding about what integrity means in very practical things, like in running a procurement process or in running a recruitment process, but also more broadly. And I think some of the work that the public service has done over recent months in calling out a much broader definition of integrity around doing the right thing at the right time, not just following the rules and keeping your bum clean. And it's the whole of that spectrum that actually institutes a culture where the decision-making is good and true and right, whether it's a big policy issue you're working on or whether it's an administrative process. I've been very fortunate that David Tune, the former Finance Secretary, who doesn't do a lot of work these days, agreed to come and problem solve the procurement problem in particular with us. And what I'm most excited about this is it's not another bloody review by a big consulting firm, with apologies to fantastic big consulting firms. But it's one of us, someone who's been in our shoes, who understands our pressures and our systems, who's been accountable to government for the probity of the whole of the government's procurement system. He's actually working with us not to review what's gone wrong in the past and give us 15 recommendations, but to say, here's how you can move forward with confidence, knowing that you've got the right principles in place, your staff are well trained, you're having the right conversations. And he started his work last week. I've asked him to do it in a few weeks because I don't want to be here in 6 months' time talking about the hygiene of the department. I want that sorted, and I want to be able to focus on the mission and the stuff we need to achieve.
Look, thank you, and I know we are getting some of the more colourful metaphors of the conference in this session. Look, I guess before we wrap up, I just want to quickly touch on cyber because, Secretary, you raised a question in your remarks, but I don't think you fully answered that question, which is really, you talked about, how do we achieve this, this goal of Australia being one of the most cyber secure countries in the world in the years ahead, I think a 2030 target. What does that actually mean in practice? What does success look like?
So that allows me to get on my other soapbox, Rory, about collaboration. If we're going to achieve that, and we are going to achieve it, it's going to be a whole of nation endeavour. And so at the top end, we have an executive cyber council which brings together the Prime Minister, the Minister, top executives from our big companies, real experts, to actually think strategically about what we're trying to achieve and how we can operate together across government, private sector. At the very other end of the spectrum, we've just launched a new grassroots campaign, Act Now, Stay Secure, which is targeted at people who actually are vulnerable, who don't quite know how to keep themselves secure and who feel a little bit frightened about that. And so it's trying to go from the highest political corporate table to everyone's dining room and generate a conversation about how every one of us has a role to play in keeping ourselves cyber secure, and that and everything in between is how we're going to achieve that goal.
Rory, can I just support what Steph just said there? And, brilliantly articulated, Steph. I love what you contributed. I want to also just pick up on the partnerships point that Steph made before. I think if we're looking for examples where partnerships becoming more and more integral to achieving our national security future, we can just start with cyber and stop there. The truth is that cybersecurity means that, just with the critical infrastructure discussion, a whole bunch of some privately owned, some government-owned assets are, if they fail, a national security risk for our country. And we're not going to be able to secure critical infrastructure unless we have really genuine and deep partnerships with the businesses and organisations that own those pieces of infrastructure. One of the parts of our department, which Steph and I are both incredibly proud of, is the work that Hamish Hansford does in the Critical Infrastructure Security Centre. He works incredibly closely with business, has a great relationship, and they're working together. This is our main mechanism as a country for lifting cybersecurity standards right across the Australian economy. So it's a really important piece of work that the department's doing that, doesn't always get a lot of airtime because it's working so effectively, which is a really good thing. I just want to mention one more thing about what does success look like, Rory. I really try to use these opportunities to make sure that people understand that the future for our country, success in cybersecurity does not mean no cyber attacks for our country. Everyone who works in cyber gets that completely, but I want to make sure that the public understand it. Cybersecurity issues are part of our future. It is a consequence of living in an interconnected world where every year millions of new devices are being connected to the internet. Now, that doesn't mean we give up, stop trying to stop cyber attacks. That's an enormously important effort on behalf of the Australian government that Steph and I work in very closely. But what it does mean is that we need to focus equally on resilience and how we get back up off the mat when things do go wrong. So just for example, coming back to critical infrastructure, we spend an enormous amount of time and energy and effort trying to defend critical infrastructure against cyber attacks. One of the pieces of work that Steph and I are really pushing on is thinking about redundancy. What are we going to do when things do go wrong? How are we going to give ourselves time and space to support citizens when we're dealing with those significant attacks on infrastructure that I talked about earlier?
Look, thank you. Time is very short, but I'll just throw one last question at you both. And Minister, I'll ask you first, if I may, and that is, there was some really thoughtful insights there on the kind of workforce that not only Home Affairs but the national security community needs in this country. And I think one of the things we're trying to do at this conference is develop the right, ethos for an inclusive whole-of-nation security workforce. What are you looking for in the national security workforce, but also in the Home Affairs, and I know it's building the nation as well as protecting the nation. What are you looking for in the workforce of the future?
Two things. One is imagination. We need national security professionals who can not only see the world for what it is today, but understand and unpick some of what lies ahead for us. I talked at the top of my speech about some of the big trends that are going to drive our national security environment. There is so much that we cannot know, and we need imaginative people to work with us to help us understand what this may look like. The second thing is almost the opposite of that, and that is hard, practical focus. One of the most important things that we need as politicians is, at the end of the day, we've talked through the problem, we've understand all the facets, we've had the big discussions, but what is government going to do to change it? And that is the place where a lot of people get stuck. So if you're thinking about, if you're a national security profession in the audience, firstly, key message, please come and work at Home Affairs. I think Steph's made that point really clearly. But just think about how you're making sure that you're developing that high-level thinking that you're getting here at the National Security College. Then how do you translate that into practically what can government do with your knowledge to make the world look different?
Thank you very much, Secretary.
So I think I'm going to say almost the same thing with two different words. My first word is curiosity, which in fact was the primary thing that the recruiters were looking for 103 years ago when I joined the Australian Signals Directorate. then the Defence Signals Directorate, and I was lucky because I didn't have too many other skills to offer them. And I say that because it actually infects, in a positive way, everything that you do if you're curious about life. It means you'll question when something doesn't feel quite right and you'll stop disasters happening. It means that you will dream about what might be possible rather than accept the status quo, because you're genuinely interested in life and its possibilities and in people and their possibilities. And so I don't think there's anything more important than that. The other thing I would say is ambition. When I talk to people about coming into Home Affairs, I want people who are hungry to change the world. I don't want journeymen and women, but rather people who believe that their role in life is to change the world for the better and have the commitment and passion to do so.
Thank you so much. I think we've learned a lot. I'm sure we're still left with some questions, but the policy treadmill doesn't stop. I know you have to get back to it. I want to thank again and ask the rest of the audience to join me in showing their thanks to our speakers today, to the Minister for Home Affairs and Cyber Security, Clare O'Neil, and also the Secretary for Home Affairs, Stephanie Foster. Thank you very much.